If you've been following the news, you've probably heard about the rumored White House's announcement about banning guns. If true, many could feel the impact of this new policy, and you're probably looking for answers. Today, we'll examine the details of this rumor and what it means for you and your community. From the practical impacts on safety and the legal implications of this policy, we'll cover all the important details. We will also talk about the positives and the negatives and give you a full picture of this complex issue. So, without wasting further time, let's get to it. The fresh strategy by the White House to tackle gun violence has shifted the focus to the local level as hopes for federal gun control gradually dies. In addition to 2 new executive actions addressing gun storage and reporting lost or stolen firearms, the Biden administration is providing tools for states to ban assault weapons, reinforce background checks, and establish a local initiative to prevent and respond to gun violence. Perhaps not surprisingly, the majority of Americans support some kind of gun reform, with 56% of U.S. adults saying that gun laws should be stricter, while 31% believe they should be kept as they are now, and 12% favor less strict gun laws. Vice President Harris, speaking at the initiative's unveiling before 100 state legislators from 39 states, emphasized the fight for what is responsible and just. The plan encourages states to adopt policies, some facing resistance on Capitol Hill, such as allowing victims of gun violence to sue gun manufacturers and dealers. The administration acknowledges federal progress while actively engaging states to advance its agenda. Data from the Associated Press and USA Today and Northwestern University reveal 39 mass killings with guns in 2023, marking the highest record number since 2006. The Safer States agenda urges state lawmakers to establish offices for gun violence prevention and found community intervention programs and allocate resources for those affected by gun violence. Supporters, including gun control advocacy group Gifford State Legislative Director Sean Houlihan, view the White House's move as a signal that state capitals are more conducive to passing life-saving legislation than Congress. Representative Lucy McBath, who spoke to state legislators before Vice President Harris, sees the initiative as a significant step, emphasizing its significance as she has lobbied for such laws since her son's 2012 shooting. You see, the United States has a deep-rooted history of gun violence. Back in 2022, we witnessed a staggering 100 daily fatalities and numerous injuries attributed to this issue. In 2018, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention National Center for Health Statistics reported a total of 38,390 deaths by firearm, with 24,432 being suicides. From 1999 to 2018, the national rate of firearm deaths increased from 10.3 to 11.9 people per 100,000, resulting in over 109 daily deaths, or approximately 14,542 annual homicides. Digging deeper, 2010 saw 19,392 firearm-related suicides and 11,078 firearm-related homicides in the U.S. reports, indicated 358 murders involving rifles, 6,009 involving handguns, and additional 1,939 with an unspecified firearm type in that year. Moving into 2011, a total of 478,400 fatal and non-fatal violent crimes were committed with firearms. The situation becomes more alarming when considering the impact on our children. According to a Pew Research Center report, gun deaths among America's children surged by 50% from 2019 to 2021. Efforts to address this crisis spanned federal, state, and local levels. This legislation aims to curb gun violence through measures like restricting firearm purchases for youths and at-risk populations, implementing waiting periods for purchases, launching gun buyback programs, deploying law enforcement strategies, enforcing strict sentences for gun law violations, educating parents and children, and fostering community outreach programs. Medical professionals express growing concern, likening gun violence in America to a disease or epidemic. Recent polls indicate that as many as 26% of Americans perceive guns as the primary national public health threat. In 2009, the Congressional Research Service estimated that the U.S. had a staggering 310 million firearms among its 306 million people, excluding military weapons. Among these, 114 million were handguns, 110 million were rifles, and 86 million were shotguns. Pinpointing civilian gun ownership figures has proven challenging over the years. Debates surround the effectiveness and safety of guns for personal defense. Studies vary, suggesting instances of guns used for personal defense range from as low as 65,000 to as high as 2.5 million times per year. During President Bill Clinton's term, a 1994 Department of Justice survey suggested a usage rate of 1.5 million times per year, based on 45 respondents reporting self-defense firearm use, acknowledging a potential overestimation due to the small sample size. A May 2014 Harvard Injury Control Research Center survey of 150 firearms researchers found that only 8% agreed that in the United States, guns are used in self-defense far more often than used in crime. In a separate study from HICRC, they once again delved into gun usage, conducting 2 national surveys in 1996 and 1999. Participants were questioned extensively about instances of using guns in self-defense. The surveys revealed a noteworthy pattern. A higher number of respondents reported being threatened or intimidated by a gun compared to those who claimed to have used a gun for self-defense. Even after filtering out responses, a majority of reported self-defense gun uses were deemed likely illegal by criminal court judges. This trend persisted, assuming the respondent had a gun permit and the event was described truthfully. In essence, the study suggested that many self-proclaimed defensive gun uses often involve escalating arguments and are both socially undesirable and illegal. Expanding on these findings, HICRC's subsequent studies yielded additional insights. One notable discovery was that household firearms were more frequently used to intimidate family members than to thwart criminal activity. Contrary to popular belief, instances of gun use in self-defense were found to be rare and no more effective at preventing injury than alternative protective measures. Moreover, a comprehensive examination of hospital records for gunshot injuries did not support the claim of millions of defensive gun users. Almost all criminals with gunshot wounds sought medical attention as victims of crime rather than offenders. In 2019, a comprehensive national study delved into the dynamics of gun policy, examining data trends from surveys conducted by the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Policy and Research over the years. The research focused on how attitudes towards specific gun policies evolved based on political affiliations and gun ownership. Interestingly, the study found that a majority of Americans, irrespective of gun ownership, supported a variety of gun policies. From 2015 to 2019, there was an overall increase in support for 18 gun policies, including a 5% rise in support for purchaser licensing and safe gun storage laws, and a 4% increase in universal background checks. Common sense kind of stuff. Notably, the data unveiled robust backing for safety training among both gun owners and non-gun owners. A staggering 81% of respondents supported mandatory safety tests for those applying for a license to carry firearms publicly, with 73% support from gun owners and 83% from non-gun owners. The study also shed light on nuanced opinions, such as 36% supporting concealed carry on college campuses, while only 31% supported carrying guns in elementary schools. The overarching support for policies like barring individuals convicted of violent crimes from carrying guns in public for 10 years reached around 78%, with gun owners and non-gun owners demonstrating significant consensus. In 2021, another study explored American public opinion on gun violence prevention funding policies across different racial and ethnic groups. The findings showed varying degrees of support for different initiatives, with a notable trend of Black support exceeding that of white. Despite minimal differences, Americans remain divided on banning guns like the AR-15 assault rifle, indicating a complex landscape of opinions. Amidst a surge in mass shootings, a Fox News poll in April 2023 revealed overwhelming support among registered voters for various gun restrictions. Notably, 87% supported criminal background checks for all gun buyers, 81% endorsed raising the age requirement to 21, and 80% believed police should have the authority to disarm those considered a danger. And remember, this is a Fox News poll, not CNN. Additionally, 61% expressed support for banning assault rifles and semi-automatic weapons, reflecting a widespread sentiment favoring more stringent gun control measures. And yet, Congress refuses to take up gun control measures. Just take a look at how much your congressman is getting from the NRA to see why this is the case. In the broader context, a majority of Americans advocate for stricter gun control laws, with 54% believing the measures would reduce deaths related to firearms. 58% express confidence in the government's ability to take effective action to prevent mass shootings. These sentiments underscore the complex and evolving landscape of public opinion on gun policies in the United States. Despite some efforts to curb gun violence, the issue remains as pressing as ever. Numerous schools and communities in the United States have implemented violence prevention and educational initiatives to curb gun-related incidents. These efforts strive to reshape the behaviors of both children and their parents. The goal is to steer children away from firearms, ensure responsible gun storage by parents, and promote conflict resolution without resorting to violence. Prevention programs vary in intensity, ranging from passive measures that require minimal effort to active approaches such as supervising children or securing guns with trigger locks. Generally, strategies focused on modifying the environment and firearms themselves tend to be more effective, though empirical evaluations of gun violence prevention programs have been limited. Speak Up, developed by the Center to Prevent Youth Violence, is a noteworthy national initiative addressing the prevention of youth violence. This program equips young people with tools to enhance the safety of their schools and communities. Speak Up includes an anonymous national hotline allowing youths to report threats of violence in their surroundings. Operating in collaboration with national education and law enforcement authorities, including the FBI, trained counselors proficient in 140 languages collect information and relay threats to appropriate officials. A widely utilized parent counseling effort is the Steps to Prevent Firearm Injury Program, or STOP, established in 1994 by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Brady Center to Prevent Gun Violence. Evolving into STOP 2 in 1998, it expanded its focus to encompass more communities and healthcare providers. Evaluations of STOP's impact on inner-city parents revealed no significant effect on gun ownership or firearm storage practices. However, Marjorie S. Hardy suggests further evaluation, citing limitations such as small sample size and the absence of a control group in the initial assessment. Another study in 1999 found no statistically significant effect of STOP on gun ownership rates or improved firearm storage practices. Efforts to curb this menace, especially regarding programs aimed at children's perception of invulnerability, difficulty applying lessons, innate curiosity, and peer pressure complicate prevention initiatives. Gun safety programs, often conducted by local firearm dealers and shooting clubs, target older children and teens to instill safe firearm handling. However, there's a lack of systemic evaluation regarding the effectiveness of these programs for children. In the case of adults, no positive impact on gun storage practices has been observed. Moreover, studies suggest that such programs might increase children's interest in obtaining and using guns, even with training. An alternative strategy involves gun avoidance, particularly in situations where children encounter firearms at neighbors' homes. The National Rifle Association, or NRA, Eddie Eagle Gun Safety Program focuses on younger children, pre-kindergarten to 6th grade, with a just say no approach. The program teaches a 4-step action plan: stop, don't touch, leave the area, and go tell an adult. Supplementary materials like coloring books and posters reinforce these lessons. However, the efficacy of the just say no approach has been questioned. An investigative report by Diane Sawyer in 1999, based on a study by Dr. Marjorie Hardy, challenged the NRA's program. The study observed elementary school children, who a police officer taught the Eddie Eagle action plan to. Later, in a playroom with a hidden gun, the children didn't avoid the firearm, but instead played with it, pulled the trigger, or aimed it at others. The study concluded that children's natural curiosity outweighed the parental directive to just say no. You'd think it would be fairly intuitive that children should be nowhere near guns. Programs aimed at entire communities, such as community revitalization, after-school activities, and media campaigns, have also played a crucial role in reducing the overall exposure of children to violence. Notable community-based initiatives addressing gun violence include New York City's Safe Kids Healthy Neighborhoods Injury Prevention Program and Chicago's Safe Homes and Havens. Assessing the effectiveness of these programs is challenging due to various influencing factors and the complex nature of such endeavors. An encouraging example is the BAM, or BAM, Becoming a Man program in Chicago, which, according to the University of Chicago Crime Lab, has yielded positive outcomes and is expanding to Boston. The March for Our Lives is one impactful student-led movement that gained nationwide attention. This demonstration, held in Washington, D.C. on March 24, 2018, rallied support for legislation to prevent gun violence in the United States. With over 880 sibling events nationwide, the march was orchestrated by Never Again MSD in collaboration with a nonprofit organization. Sparked by the tragic Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High school shooting in Parkland, Florida, on February 14, 2018, the march is recognized as a potential turning point for discussions on gun control legislation. 2022 was the year when President Biden took a significant step by signing bipartisan gun control legislation, despite not achieving all the goals he and his advocates had envisioned. This law marked a pivotal moment in addressing mental health services and school security. It expanded criminal background checks for certain gun purchases, restricted more domestic violence offenders from buying firearms, and supported programs enabling authorities to confiscate weapons from individuals in distress. However, subsequent mass killings, such as the tragic incident at the Christian school in Nashville on the 27th of March 2023, did not spur further legislative action in the divided Congress. The need for additional measures to curb gun violence remained unmet. They always say follow the money if you want to figure something out. In 2023 alone, the NRA spent a staggering $1.8 million in lobbying congressmen to avoid gun control measures. Additionally, they contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to various congressmen's and congresswomen's campaigns. Speaking of the incident in Nashville, it was truly a heartbreaking one. On the day of the incident, Hale, a Nashville resident with a clean record, arrived at the school at 9:54 a.m. and later sent an alarming Instagram message to a friend, referring to an earlier post as a suicide note. The concerned friend promptly called a crisis hotline and contacted the Davidson County Sheriff's Office at 10:13 a.m. Armed with 2 rifles and a pistol, Hale entered the school at 10:11. By shooting through glass doors, at 10:13, police received an active shooter call. Responding officers discovered students in lockdown with 2 missing. They entered the building at 10:23, clearing the first floor before hearing gunshots from the second floor. Officers encountered Hale at 10:25, and by 10:27, 14 minutes after the initial 911 call, Hale was deceased after firing over 150 rounds. You might ask yourself, why should one individual be allowed to buy hundreds of rounds of ammunition unchecked? Tragically, 6 lives were lost randomly, 3 students and 3 staff. The victims included 9-year-olds Evelyn Deckhaus, William Kinney, and Holly Scruggs, along with a substitute teacher, Cynthia Peak, custodian Mike Hill, and a head of school, Catherine Kontz. Additionally, a police officer sustained injuries from shattered glass. Despite the investigation, Hale, initially identified as Audrey Elizabeth Hale, was later reported by media sources as a trans man. MNPD Chief John Drake mentioned they believed Hale identified as trans, but the investigation was ongoing. Hale, an illustrator and graphic designer, graduated from Nassau College of Art and Design in 2022, residing with his parents. Reports revealed that Hale had difficulty coping with the death of a woman in August 2022, potentially a romantic partner or close friend. Once this event occurred, critics began to remind the government of their incompetence in making sure the restrictions against guns were strictly adhered to. In the desperate effort to curb gun violence, there's a new policy emerging from the White House. It's called the Safer States Initiative. In September 2023, President Biden created the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, led by Vice President Kamala Harris, with a focus on supporting state and city efforts to reduce gun violence. The Biden-Harris administration has now introduced the Safer States Initiative, spearheaded by Vice President Harris, to provide states with resources and guidance for this cause. The initiative's blueprint, the Biden-Harris Safer States Agenda, recommends actions for states, including establishing their own gun violence prevention offices, investing in proven anti-violence strategies, supporting gun violence survivors, promoting responsible gun ownership, strengthening background checks, and holding the gun industry accountable through bans and liability laws. The Justice Department is contributing to this effort with 2 new executive actions. The first is a model for safe storage legislation to encourage secure firearm storage and reduce risks like school shootings, suicides, and accidental shootings. The second is a model for lost and stolen firearms reporting legislation to aid in tracking and prosecuting firearm trafficking. The White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention will continue to actively assist states in implementing these measures. This new policy has sparked much debate, stirring up legal and social discussions. On the social side, opinions are as varied as a bag of mixed candy. Some people feel relieved, thinking the initiative is a necessary step to create safer communities. They hope it will curb the alarming rate of gun-related incidents. On the flip side, a group of people see this as an encroachment on their freedom to bear arms and a violation of the American spirit. They argue that responsible gun owners shouldn't be penalized for the actions of a few bad apples. One major concern is the potential impact on self-defense. Advocates for the gun ban stress the need to prioritize safety over the perceived right to self-defense with firearms. They argue that the alternative methods like increased police presence or improved security measures can still protect without the need for widespread gun ownership. However, opponents fear this could leave law-abiding citizens vulnerable, as they might not have the means to defend themselves in critical situations. This initiative triggers a tangled web of legal and social considerations. While aiming to enhance public safety, it also raises questions about individual rights, self-defense, and the practicalities of enforcement. As the nation grapples with these issues, the ongoing dialogue will likely shape the landscape of gun regulations and their impact on American society. What are your thoughts on this initiative? Be sure to leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more.